Appearance for the police officer charged in Daunte Wright's killing in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, and the trial in Minneapolis of ex-officer Derek Chauvin in the killing of George Floyd. Video emerged today from Chicago in the fatal police shooting of Adam Toledo, a 13-year-old Latino. Of course, all of the cases are different. Each scenario and each investigation is unique, and we'll treat each of them as such. There's no denying the country is on edge. We'll be joined by the Toledo family attorney. Our legal and law enforcement analysts are here as well, including former D.C. and Philadelphia Police Chief Charles Ramsey, who's especially qualified to talk about what is and what isn't appropriate use of deadly force. We want to start, though, where Daunte Wright was killed, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, a town that has seen 4 straight nights of protests and arrests, and it looks to be bracing for a 5th. Miguel Marquez is there. So what are you seeing right now, Miguel?
Yeah, it very much does look like it's going to be a 5th night of some sort of protest. I want to show you what the crowd is doing right now. Look, people are out here rallying. They're out here in support of Daunte Wright. They certainly want to see justice for him. They want to see changes to the police force as well and to the way policing is done. They are handing out umbrellas. They're handing out eye protection. They are clearly preparing for a night of making a very emphatic point to the police here of the changes that they want to see to the entire system. The police, for their side, have put in extra barriers, cement barriers and fencing all the way up and down the station itself and even on some of the side streets here. So both sides sort of getting ready for another night here. But I got to tell you that police have gotten much better at moving in very quickly when curfews go into effect and moving people, breaking up the protests and moving people out. Anderson?
Is there a curfew in place tonight, as there has been over the past couple of days?
There is for Brooklyn Center. It's been a little patchy around the entire Minneapolis area. There's not for the city of Minneapolis. There's not for Brooklyn Park, which is just east of where we are. But for Brooklyn Center, there is one starting at 10 p.m. The curfew aside, though, if the police decide that it's an unlawful gathering, they will announce that and start using means to try to move the crowd on as well. So we'll have to see how the night progresses, but it's always a little different, and we suspect that this crowd will be back again and again and again. Anderson?
Miguel Marquez, appreciate it. Now, Chicago and the killing of a 13-year-old, Adam Toledo. A warning first, this is an especially difficult subject. Our Randy Kay has the story.
It's hard to watch the final moments of a 13-year-old boy's life. This Chicago police officer's body cam appears to show the teenage boy with what police say is a gun in his right hand, turning toward the officer. In less than a second, he's fatally shot. A single bullet to the chest from the officer's gun. It happened on March 29th. Chicago police say officers were responding to a shots fired call on the city's west side when they say they came upon 13-year-old Adam Toledo and a 21-year-old man walking down an alley. The officer's body cam footage shows Toledo fleeing and the officer pursuing the teenager on foot, yelling at him to stop.
Please stop! Stop right now! Hey, show me your hand! Stop it!
What happened next is still under investigation, but police say the body cam video shows Toledo with a gun in his right hand as the officer once again yells for him to stop. As the boy turns around, the officer opens fire.
I've seen no evidence whatsoever that Adam Toledo shot at the police.
Police later tweeted out this picture of a gun they say was recovered from the scene, and prosecutors say Toledo's right hand tested positive for gunshot residue. But the family's attorney insisting the boy was not holding a gun when he was shot.
Adam, during his last second of life, did not have a gun in his hand. The officer screamed at him, "Show me your hands." Adam complied, turned around. His hands were empty when he was shot in the chest at the hands of the officer.
She later suggested Adam Toledo may have had a gun at some point, but tossed it. On the video, the unnamed officer who shot the boy immediately calls for an ambulance and tries to render aid. Police say 21-year-old Ruben Roman was with the teenager and is in custody. The charges against him include felony reckless discharge of a firearm and felony endangerment of a child. Adam Toledo's family first saw the body cam video of the shooting on Tuesday. The boy's mother sobbing as she questioned why anyone would kill her baby. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot also saw the video before it was released.
It was excruciating. Watching the body cam footage, which shows young Adam after he's shot, is extremely difficult.
The boy's family initially asked that the video not be made public right away, but later attorneys for the family and the Chicago mayor's office agreed to release the video along with a slowed-down version of it.
He's running through an alley. The raw video footage is extraordinarily jumpy. It's really hard to see anything. Providing kind of a slowed down, frame by frame opportunity to see what happened is going to be helpful to members of the public.
Adam Toledo's mother describes her son as happy, saying he loved animals, building Legos, and playing with Hot Wheels. Now, so many questions about how he ended up dead in a Chicago alley at the hands of police. Randy Kay, CNN, Palm Beach County, Florida.
Well, joining us now is the attorney you saw in Randy's report, Adina Weiss-Ortiz, who represents the Toledo family. Ms. Weiss-Ortiz, I appreciate you joining us. So police say the footage shows that less than 1 second passes between the time when Toledo is seen with a gun and the officer fires a shot. If that is true, would the officer's actions be justified?
Well, let's clarify what's on the videos. There is a slowed down version of the video which the police have compiled. In the version that everybody saw today, which was the body cam, you cannot see in real time whether Adam had a gun in his hand. There is also another scene, a video from the school adjacent to the alley. In that video, you cannot see whether Adam had a gun in his hand. That video needs to be forensically analyzed, enhanced, and zoomed in to determine what, if anything, Adam had in his hand. Nevertheless, at the moment the officer
Are you saying
shot
he
him,
did not? Are you saying he did not? I mean, you're his lawyer, his family's attorney. Do you know one way or the other if he had a gun in his hand? Because police say not only they found a gun, they also found gun residue on a glove he was wearing on his hand.
Well, the gun that was found was approximately 5 feet or more, 10 feet from Adam's body, number one. Gun residue is transferable.
Well, what does that tell you? What is that?
Well,
that is 5. I mean, it seems a big coincidence that there's a gun found right where he happened to stop. I mean,
well, gun was found 5 to 10 feet from the body. Gun residue is transferable. The defendant, Ruben Roman, who was charged with unlawful use of a weapon, had red gloves in his hand covered with gun residue. At this point, we don't know if the gun residue on Adam's hand was there when he passed away.
well, what you're saying is we don't know if Adam fired the gun, which is what there would be residue of, I assume. I'm not an expert on this.
No.
But
No.
No?
No, it is established that Ruben Roman fired that gun. It is also established that the magazine was empty. It is also established that the slide was opened. And it is also established that when Adam turned around, there was no gun in his hand.
Okay. But yet a gun was found right by his body, 5 to 10 feet away, throwing distance.
Correct.
So are you saying he did not have a gun, or the only other option is that the associate he was being with, who is now in custody, placed that gun there previous to the police even arriving, and it's just a sheer coincidence that his body is found near that, correct?
At this time, there's nowhere to establish what, if anything, was in Adam's hand. It is not clear on the school video. It is not clear on the CPD video. All the images that we have thus far of Adam's right hand is blurry. So we cannot establish one way or another whether that child had the gun in his hand.
You've called this, quote, assassination. Now, obviously, tensions are high in Chicago and Minnesota, elsewhere around the country. What makes you say that this is an assassination, which is a predetermined, planned out attempt to kill somebody?
Well, let's just establish one thing. This family, more than anything, wants peace in Chicago. This family has called for peace at every opportunity thus far. When I say it's an assassination, when the reporter, I believe from Univision, asked me about it, I have an unarmed 13-year-old child, the Holy Week of Easter, shot behind an alley with his hands in the air in the middle of his chest. He was given a directive from the officer, show me your hands. That child complied, lifted up his hands, and was shot in the middle of his chest.
How is, I mean, I can't imagine, I was going to ask how the family is coping. Obviously, it is beyond anything. It's the worst thing for any parent to go through. What is the family wanting to see happen as far as the police department and possibly even the courts are concerned?
The avenues that we're taking legally will be disclosed at a later time, but they want justice for their family. They want reform. They want enhanced training for police officers. Obviously, this officer prematurely pointed the trigger at that young man when that young man complied, and then he shot him.
How do you determine that? You're saying you're not clear what's on the video, and yet you're coming to a conclusion.
No, everybody wants to pinpoint Adam with a gun in his hand. Nobody at this time can pinpoint Adam with a gun in his hand. We don't know what, if anything, he had in his hand. The video footage of the officer, he's running up and down. The video footage from Farragut School is from a great distance. It is zoomed and enhanced. So when you want to pin me down on what he had in his hand, I can't do that at this time.
Okay. Dina Whiteside-Ortiz, I appreciate your time and your representation of this family. And again, I'm so sorry for this family's loss.
Thank you.
It's awful. Joining us now, someone with experience running two major police departments in Philadelphia and D.C., CNN law enforcement analyst Charles Ramsey. Chief Ramsey, appreciate you being with us. I've watched this video. It is obviously horrific to see a 13-year-old boy shot and being attended to medically, and the video is just horrific. When you watch this video of the chase, all that we know has gone on, all that we've seen really just from this video and what police have said and what the family is saying, what do you see, or what stands out to you?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying that it is a tragedy anytime someone loses their life, particularly a young person. It is a tragedy. But I too saw that video. In addition, I saw some other videos. I went to the Civilian Office of Police Accountability website that investigates these kinds of things for the Chicago PD, and they have several videos there. In my opinion, tragic as it was, the shooting was reasonable. And here's what I saw. There is a video that shows the young man and an adult, who is the 21-year-old, walking down a street together. Now, this is at 2:40 in the morning, 2:40 a.m., 13-year-old on the street with a 21-year-old at 2:40 in the morning. There's another shot that shows them walking down the street, and then they turn. You see a car going down the street. You can see the taillights. They turn toward the street, and then you hear a succession of shots, probably 7 or 8 shots. Those are the shots the shot spotter picked up. In addition to that, I listened to 911.
By the way, that shots fired, by the way, that shots fired thing you referenced, that is a program that they have in Chicago, which I was unaware of, that basically it's it's a listening device that picks up, when it picks up, detects the sounds of gunfire, it alerts the police that there have been shots fired in an area, and that's what had this police officer respond. Exactly.
I had it in Philly in a couple spots, and I had it in D.C. as well. I'm very familiar with it. It's very effective. There's another video that is taken that shows the two of them running immediately after the shots are fired. Then it picks up with the officer getting out of the car, running behind the individual, and you'll see when he comes across the adult, and he kind of goes by him, but his partner actually takes that person down. I saw that body cam as well. They get to the end of the alleyway, and he's again telling the young man to stop, to turn around. And you can see there's a still shot with the young man he still has what looked to me like a gun in his right hand. And he suddenly spun around, and that's when the officer fired a single shot. Immediately after, the officer went there and began applying, first aid, even CPR to the man. There is a gun on the other side of the fence because there's an opening there. and the gun is on the other side, maybe about 5 feet. But when he spins around like that, if he had the gun in his right hand, that could have easily just flown right out of his hand, either as he was shot or he was trying to get rid of it right as he was shot. But it was less than a second, literally less than a second from the time the officer saw that gun in his hand to the time he fired that shot. I believe that's reasonable. I know right now everybody's, blood in the water about policing. And I have not hesitated to speak up whenever officers inappropriately use force of any kind. This ain't one of those cases. I don't know how many people have ever chased an armed person down an alley at night. I have. And I know what it's like, believe me.
We should point out there was a gun on the ground in that spot.
Yes.
Again, if he did not throw it there, unless then somebody else placed it there, and that we're seeing this was all happening in real time. The attorney, I don't know if she was suggesting that, the 21-year-old may have used the gun and it could have been there just coincidentally. That seems unlikely. When I watched the video, not the slowed down version, but just, which is important to watch in and of itself, but just the real time one, you do just get a sense of the split second involved here and in which a decision is made. And it just, wherever you come down on this, it does give you a sense of the extreme difficulty of, what a police officer is facing, what anybody in this scenario is facing. These things are, in this case, it is happening so lightning fast late at night. It is a very difficult situation.
2:40 in the morning, 13 years old, out on the street with a guy with a gun. It's a tragic set of circumstances. And I'm not trying to victim blame, but sometimes people put themselves in awful bad positions. And so, that time of morning, you got a gun, you're running. And if he had tossed it while he was running, the video, of course, is bumpy because the video camera is actually in the chest of an officer. That's where they carry him. But you've jogged before. Anybody who's ever jogged and run, you know that when you're running, as far as your head goes, it's relatively stable. It's in the body. It's when you start getting that motion. Yeah. So that officer was able to see what he was looking at.
Chief Ramsey, I appreciate it. A difficult situation. Coming up next, closing testimony in the Derek Chauvin trial and what to make of the ex-officer's decision not to take the stand. And later, the congressman who sees mask wearing as a threat to personal freedom in his confrontation today with Dr. Anthony Fauci.
When do we get to the point? What?
Comfort in the extreme. The Lincoln family of luxury SUVs.
The Harry's razor is not the same. Our razors have 5 German-engineered blades designed to stay sharp, so your 8th shave is as smooth as your first. And we never upcharge you for high quality. Harry's, available in store and at harrys.com.
Design isn't just for designers. It's for everyone. With Canva, designing anything is easy and free.
I use Canva to make social posts, website banners, everything I need to reach new customers.
Start designing for free at canva.com.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile can be good at just $15 a month. So, as Mint's new owner, I brought in one of our first and oldest customers, Wasim McNaby.
Welcome to Mint, Ryan.
So you've had Mint for years. Any issues?
No, the service has been great.
And under my ownership, it's gonna get even better.
How?
No idea.
Still $15 a month though, right?
Yep.
How about Taco Wednesday? Nobody's done that before.
All right, I'm getting in the car now. I'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Whoa! Lisa?
Sorry, I dropped ya.
It's really dark down here. Oh, there's some change down here too.
Don't let this happen to you. With removable cups, the WeatherTech Cup Phone fits virtually any size cup holder and adjusts to secure virtually any size phone, tilts for perfect viewing, and even allows easy access while charging.
That's better.
Order your American-made cup phone today at WeatherTech.com.
We don't know about you, but we've always hated uncomfortable mesh lining. Chafing has ruined so many great times at the beach. We set out to create the most comfortable beachwear on the planet by replacing all mesh lining with our super soft, built-in Bosch Brief liner. Made from recycled plastic bottles, we create products for you to enjoy the places that you love while protecting those places too. Say goodbye to mesh lining forever with Fair Harbor. Visit us at fairharborclothing.com to learn more.
What do you do, Mayor?
I'm a detective.
A detective?
Mm-hmm. Police department received a call reporting a dead body in Creedham Creek. I need you to remember as much as you can. We can find out who did this. She's a needle in 1,000 haystacks.
The ground is just falling out beneath you.
Mom, stay out of it.
I've been on a diet for as long as I can remember.
I even cut out bread and pasta for a day.
They say it's based on a cognitive behavioral approach. I just say it works.
It just clicked. It worked. It worked with Noom.
Visit Noom.com and lose the weight for good.
Wealth is your first big investment. Worth is a partner to help share the load. Wealth is saving a little extra. Worth is knowing it's never too late to start. Or too early. Wealth helps you retire. Worth is knowing why. Principal, for all it's worth.
84% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. Truebill helps you save money by finding recurring charges, notifying you when they're due, and easily canceling unwanted subscriptions. Download Truebill and take control of your money.
In Minneapolis, crews have been putting up razor wire around police stations in preparation for a verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial. Police departments in Atlanta, Chicago, and Washington also taking precautions. Testimony ended today in court. Closing arguments will be heard on Monday. Tension, as you could see from those images, and as you might imagine, is running high. We'll have more now from Sarah Seidner.
I will invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege today.
For the first time since the start of the trial, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin spoke in court.
Do you feel that your decision not to testify is a voluntary one on your behalf?
Yes, it is.
He chose not to take the stand as a witness in his own defense, leading the defense to rest its case.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense rests.
The prosecution then brought back its star medical witness to refute the idea brought up by yesterday's defense expert.
It is an extremely toxic gas.
That exhaust from the squad car's tailpipe possibly led to carbon monoxide poisoning of George Floyd.
Do you agree with that proposition that's highlighted there?
No, I do not. It's simply wrong.
Just before that, the prosecution attempted to introduce new lab result evidence about carbon monoxide poisoning.
It was discovered yesterday by Dr. Baker. It would return a value for the carbon monoxide content, and then would show whether or not that result is in the normal range or not.
The defense argued such a late evidence entry by the prosecution should lead to a mistrial.
It's our position that these new test results should not go in front of the jury, first and foremost. And second, if they were, I would be moving for a mistrial.
The judge agreed.
The late disclosure has prejudiced the defense. It's not going to be allowed.
A short time later, all witness testimony came to an end.
The state of Minnesota rests.
And Sarah Seidner joins us now along with George Floyd's brother, Terrence. Sarah?
Yeah, so we should mention, too, that the jury will get this case on Monday after closing arguments. But I am here with Terrence Floyd. Terrence, if you wouldn't mind coming over to talk to me, and I appreciate you being here. Why did you decide to come to this particular spot? This is the spot where Daunte Wright was killed. The last time I saw you in person, it was at the spot where your brother was killed when you came into Minneapolis to pay your respects there. Why are you here today?
Well, we all know I'm in Minneapolis because of the trial for my brother. But as we're here for that, this situation happened. So I thought it not robbery to come and just like I came down and pay respects to my brother where he passed away, where he got murdered. I want to do the same thing for Daunte Wright. That's why I just felt compelled to come down here and just show him some love, show his family some love.
Could you have ever predicted or imagined that during the trial of a former officer accused of killing your brother for kneeling on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, that another young, unarmed black man would be shot dead by an officer just 10 miles away from what happened to your brother?
No, I couldn't, this is just surreal. I couldn't have imagined this because during this time you would think, they would be low-key, try to, like, I said, dot every I, cross every T, and just do everything by the book. But yet it's still, accidents, quote unquote, are still happening, and we're dying from it.
Do you believe that this was not an accident? Because you said accidents, quote unquote.
I seriously don't believe it's an accident because I'm not sure of the color of a taser in this part of town, but where I'm from, Brooklyn, New York, a taser is yellow and black, and a gun is black. So I don't think it was an accident because even besides the color, it's a weight difference. Other than that, besides it being a weight difference, they're positioned on different sides. So if you're a 26-year you've been on the force for 26 years, and you don't know by now which side to go to, no, I really don't feel it was an accident, not at all.
Can you tell me what it was like the moment that you walked up to this memorial? You see Daunte's name spelled out in candles. You have seen this scene before. That fist right there was taken from your brother's memorial. What was it like showing up here today?
It was like I said, like my nephew said, it was a damn this again moment. It happened again. And just walking up here, knowing his age, that could have been my son, because my son is 18. That could have been my son. And then it's just mind-boggling that, the people that we are looking for protection from are actually using us like, being our predators. It seems like they're coming after us, and that's the way I see it right now. I'm sorry.
No, it's hard. No, you're okay. You're okay. I want to explain to you also why Terrence is so filled with emotion and at a loss for words. He literally just got a phone call. I hope you don't mind if I say.
Yeah, sure.
Just got a phone call from Daunte Wright's mother, and he heard her voice, and he said if his mother had been alive, and George Floyd's mother had been alive, he heard his mother's voice in Daunte Wright's mother as she was talking to him about the pain she felt, the death of her son. Anderson?
Sarah Seidner, thank you, and Terrence Floyd, thank you. Appreciate it. Our legal team has been helping us understand the courtroom proceedings from day one. Senior legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Laura Coates is with us, and criminal defense attorney Mark O'Mara. Mark, if you were representing Derek Chauvin, I assume you would have advised him to not to testify.
Though it's truly his decision at that moment in time, I've got to tell you that there was virtually nothing that Chauvin could have done to help himself in this case, I don't believe. The only thing, and though I might have scripted it, he could never have gotten through it if he actually went out there and somehow apologized, somehow explained that he was based on his training, somehow came up with an explanation that might have convinced this jury to give him a lesser charge. But there was nothing he could have done to increase the chances of acquittal. And I think he would have been devastated on cross-examination by the prosecutor because there's no way that he can defend nothing other than the 9.5 minutes. So I think it was the right decision under these circumstances.
Laura, I don't know if one can generalize, but do prosecutors typically want to get a chance at cross-examining the defendant? Or in some instances, are they relieved when a defendant doesn't take a stand?
I mean, normally prosecutors are champing at the bit to be able to interview someone, let alone have a cross, because then you're able to bring up things that you otherwise could not get in. If there are prior bad acts, for example, I know that the judge in this case was not going to allow the overwhelming number of cases that they wanted, not that the number was overwhelming, but they wouldn't allow the majority of the actual prior bad acts of perhaps excessive force and other instances to get in. But if he opens a door and takes that stand, he's essentially fair game. So you want the opportunity as a prosecutor. I will say, as much as the defense is trying to plant a seed of doubt, one thing that defendants can do, which is very, very troublesome to a prosecutor, is they can plant a seed of empathy. Up until now, we've only heard from people who are doing no favors to try to make Derek Chauvin look bad. He did himself no favors. The 9-minute and 29-second video did no favors. But the idea of how people are psychologically trained in this country to give the benefit of a doubt to a police officer, even if they did not see a viable defense explanation, let alone justification, there is always an opportunity that somebody might see something about this individual in themselves, interpret his demeanor, his idiosyncrasies, his expressions in some way, his remorse, if he's able to demonstrate it, and they may be able to try to essentially attribute what they would feel on this person. That's the only real benefit you can have as a defendant in a case like this, to try to appeal to some sort of iota of empathy. Unfortunately, however, if he's not somebody who was going to be able to convey that, and the overwhelming evidence has been presented already, what could he possibly have said? He can't say he was trained to do this. He can't say he didn't know that the person was in distress. He can't say that he actually rendered aid. So what can he say?
Mark, looking at to Monday, how much do closing arguments actually matter? I mean, can a case be won or lost by what lawyers say in their summations?
You know, I often say that closing arguments are really there for the lawyers because it's what we learned, on TV and wanted to do in law school. But I will tell you, in a complicated case, and this case is complicated not because of the facts of the case. It's easy for us to say it looks like the state proved their case. And as laymen looking at it, it's pretty obvious. But what the defense has to focus on is nothing more than that jury has to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. And if the defense does their job of going through everything and showing up these potential other possibilities of cause of death, not that it happened that way, that's not the defense job. The defense's job is to say, if I can give you a reason, if I can give you a piece of evidence to which you can attach a doubt, and you have a reason for that, what it means is simply the state doesn't get their conviction because they have not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. You are not deciding that my client is innocent. You are simply telling the prosecution you didn't do enough to take away all reasonable doubt. And that is the job of a criminal defense attorney in closing arguments.
Mark O'Mara, Laura Coates, stay with us. Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks very much. I want to get Laura's perspective on today's first court appearance for Kim Potter, the ex-police officer who shot and killed Daunte Wright, and what direction her case could take. We'll be right back.
Spring driving is here, and the countdown to luxury has begun at your local Cadillac showroom. Experience the iconic style and bold sophistication in a Cadillac SUV or sedan. Reward yourself and move up to a Cadillac.
Get 0.9% APR for 72 months, plus current eligible non-GM owners get $3,500 total purchase allowance on a 2021 Cadillac XT6.
Out here, you're more than just a landowner. You're a gardener, a landscaper, a hunter. Because you didn't settle for ordinary. Same goes for your equipment. Versatile, powerful, durable Kubota equipment. More goes into it, so you get more out of it.
It's time to forget your worries and escape to a place where the water is warm, the people are even warmer, and there are 1,000 worry-free moments waiting to unfold. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Real Home Realizations by Realtor.com.
Why is it called working from home? It should be called working from junk closet. Right, Skelly Bob?
Now that you've spent so much time at home, maybe Realtor.com.
This is what it feels like wearing regular shoes. No all-around support. And this is what it's like wearing Skechers Arch Fit footwear. It's all the comfort and support you need.
We're almost done here, Brooke.
It's good to have support. Try Skechers Arch Fit footwear with podiatrist-certified arch support.
At Empower Retirement, we help you open doors that get you ready for everything that lies ahead. Because your financial wellness is what matters most. Behind every door is an opportunity to save for life's moments.
So proud of you.
These are your goals, and it's time to help get you there. We've been opening doors for more than 12 million customers across America as they save for the future they want. We are Empower Retirement, and we're ready to open some doors for you.
It started with Jackie Robinson having the courage to not fight back.
I'm excited to see you guys get the Rookie of the Year. It's the only award you can win once.
Black hitter and a black pitcher, something out of a storybook.
If you guys are the future, I really love the way baseball is going.
Have you heard of Nuts.com? It's the best kept secret of savvy snackers all over the country. Incredible nuts, dried fruits, organic snacks, and gluten-free treats. There's something for everyone to love, including free shipping with your first order.
Best pistachios ever.
Love the dried peaches.
White chocolate toffee cashews are awesome.
The holy grail of honey sesame sticks.
The quality has made me a customer for life.
With so much to love and free shipping with your first order, check out Nuts.com.
Okay, class, did you know outer space is so big, we don't know where it starts or even where it ends? And in all of that, in all of the universe, the most complex thing ever discovered is the human brain.
AT&T keeps kids and teachers connected so the learning never stops.
Let's jump in. Now, who wants to look inside the brain?
The People vs. the Klan, Sunday at 9.
With the pain still fresh and protesters again tonight taking to the streets of Brooklyn Center, the ex-police officer who shot and killed Daunte Wright made her first court appearance today. Kim Potter was arrested yesterday, charged with second-degree manslaughter. Here again is CNN's Miguel Marquez.
My brother and my sister need this woman to be convicted.
Daunte Wright's aunt, Naisha, calling for the conviction of former Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter, who had her initial hearing today on a single charge of second-degree manslaughter.
Can we get something? Manslaughter?
Ben Crump, the lawyer for Daunte Wright's family, says the 20-year-old father should never have been pulled over to begin with for expired tags, should never have even been threatened with a taser, and doesn't believe the former Officer Potter, a 26-year veteran of the force, could mistake a handgun for a taser, as body cam video suggests.
They come up with a way to justify over again the killing of black people in America.
Daunte Wright, he says, is of a justice system stacked against people of color.
And that's very important, that marginalized minorities in America get their day in court.
Wright's family says that Kim Potter was charged quickly is a step forward, but will never be enough.
Unfortunately, there's never going to be justice for us. The justice would bring our son home to us, knocking on the door with his big smile, coming in.
Daunte Wright's father says his son's life was only beginning to take shape.
My son was a good young man. He was a young man in the making. We were building my son up to be somebody. He was gonna be somebody.
Speaking at the church where their son will be eulogized next week, speaking just before going to the funeral home to see their son's body for the first time since he was killed, his 14-year-old sister speaking about her brother.
My brother, he was the most delightful person I've ever met. Like, he was everything. Everything. His smile, his jokes, his everything about him.
And Miguel Marquez joins us now from Brooklyn Center. So what is next for the Wright family, Miguel?
It's a big family, and I've met some of the siblings, and they are absolutely lovely and absolutely shocked at what they are dealing with now. It was really moving being in that church where his funeral will be next week, and that's the big thing that they're moving toward now. They were going to the funeral home today to see his body for the first time since he died, and they are preparing for that funeral that'll be next Thursday at that same church. It is an incredibly hard time for them. It's so hard to see the father of Daunte Wright get up and speak. He had a very difficult time saying anything but wanted to speak on behalf of his son. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Miguel Marquez, appreciate it. Thank you. Back with us as well now, CNN senior legal analyst Laura Coates. Laura, you heard Daunte Wright's aunt call for the conviction of the former police officer Potter. Do you have any sense of how the course of this, and how tough or easy would it be for prosecutors to deliver that verdict for the Wright family?
Well, you know, the definition of justice, unfortunately, for so many families of victims in this country is just not in line with what the laws can provide, especially when it means and comes to the sentencing. But having said that, even without that universal definition of justice, Anderson, there is a charge now against this officer. And as I've said before, because of the pace of this actual charge, it could mean this is only the initial charge. I remind people that another officer in the Minneapolis area just a couple years ago, Mohammed Noor, was also charged with this second-degree manslaughter, but they also had a third-degree murder charge attached to it, based on the same factual predicate of this unreasonable risk that was taken. And the unreasonable risk here is when you've created an opportunity where you could actually consciously cause somebody to die or have grave bodily harm. The question that comes down to is how they're going to be able to reconcile this notion of consciously. Is the fact that the taser is so markedly different from the service weapon going to be enough to infer that there was consciousness? Remember, the words that we choose in a statute are very deliberate, and they have meaning. They're not just sort of terms you throw out there. And so they'll have to go and develop the case to figure out if they're going to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that even if it wasn't an intentional act, if all of the circumstances surrounding it showed this was a consciously taken, unreasonable risk, you could elevate these charges. Now, I'll just say this, though, Anderson. Remember, one of the things that's very disturbing about officers when they are involved in these cases as potential defendants is they get the opportunity to preempt a lot of this. When that now resigned police chief got up there, he set the stage and the tone of what people believed or were led to believe. He called it an accidental discharge. With that out there in the universe, the prosecutors have to try to figure out if that's truthful or if that is only part of the story or an outright lie. This investigation for them has just really begun.
And the Wright family suggests it wants to see much more jail time than this case, as it now stands, could potentially result in. Do you think second-degree manslaughter is the appropriate charge, given what's known at the time?
Well, given what's known at the time, without any information about the idea of acting with a depraved heart in some respect, which of course also has some legal connotations, this is a good initial charge. Now, again, this is a sliding scale for many prosecutors. And I remind people, another officer, Geronimo Yanez, who shot and killed Philando Castile, also had this same charge of second-degree manslaughter. And they added 2 additional lower charges, where the Mohammed Noor case increased 1. So depending upon how all of this is going in the investigation, it is the appropriate charge initially, but that does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that it needs to be the final charge. Particularly, you have to think about the entire course of events here, from the time he was pursued to stopped, to this officer intervening, to now having the service weapon instead of the taser. All of this comes into the same statement we've looked at the Derek Chauvin trial, which is the reasonable use of force. If that wasn't followed, the sliding scale goes up in terms of the degree of the charge, whether it's manslaughter or murder.
Laura Coates, I appreciate it. Thank you. Up next, we have breaking news on the vaccine front, why some may need a third shot this year, and a fiery exchange today on Capitol Hill between Dr. Anthony Fauci and Congressman Jim Jordan. We'll be right back.
Before, we'd always be late and on empty. Now we're just late. Kids?
Before, no one used to listen to me. Hello, ID? I'm cold.
Before, we couldn't take in the sweet sounds of nature.
Seriously.
Before it can change the world, it has to change yours. The all-new, all-electric Volkswagen ID4.
Want to stop clogged, smelly drains before they start? You need Sani Sticks from Sani 360, the drain cleaning and sanitizing sticks you simply
these 2 ways.
Continue to work together, like on nuclear issues and arms control. And Biden also proposed a face-to-face summit with Putin in Europe this summer. Anderson.
Alex Marquardt, I appreciate it. Thanks. The news continues. I want to hand it over to Chris for Cuomo Prime Time. Chris?
All right, Anderson, thank you very much. I am Chris Cuomo, and welcome to Prime Time. Critical body cam video has been released of another police killing. The victim in this case is a 13-year-old named Adam Toledo. This happened on March 29th in Chicago. There is closed-circuit camera footage and body camera footage showing different moments before and after the shooting, including the foot pursuit of an officer chasing the boy and also the shooting itself in an alley on Chicago's West Side. Here's what we know. Police responded to reports of gunshots. When they responded to the scene, they came upon Toledo and a 21-year-old man. Both ran. The 21-year-old was arrested at the scene. One of the officers chased Adam and shot him after issuing a command to him. Now, all of these tapes are painful to watch. I understand that. But imagine how difficult these situations were when we didn't have them. And please appreciate the help they are. First, real speed, at the point where the pursuit became a shooting.
Please stop! Stop right Hey, show me your stop it! Stop it! Now. Look at me, look at me. Look at me. You all right?
The main question, was the officer justified in firing the single shot that killed the 13-year-old? The answer is not as simple as you may think. The critical issue is going to be whether or not the officer reasonably believed that Adam was holding a gun. Here is another look at a critical moment. You see the officer running through. This is the alley. It's obviously at night. He's charging toward the boy and then says, now this has been pointed out by the police, okay? They are saying that this is the firearm. On the left is a close-up. On the right is the regular frame. The police have indicated the arrow with firearm, okay? He's obviously charging towards the boy. He then says, hey, show me your hands. At that moment, you see the tape is frozen. You can see there does appear to be something in Toledo's hand. The police say it was a firearm. CNN, however, cannot confirm that. Police say that it was a gun that was later recovered from behind the fence where they're running now. Now, let's look at the rest of the tape that turns to a different angle, okay? Here it is. It's from farther away, obviously, from a school nearby. Now, what the police here are highlighting what they believe when he dropped the gun, after the cop had told Toledo to drop his weapon. But the officer then shoots him. And you can see Toledo running from a back angle, okay? This is where he stops in front of it. This is the back alley. This is his back angle running, okay? Police did identify a firearm after the shooting on the other side of the fence. The question is that the same gun? Did Toledo throw it when the cop came? There's the gun, found facing butt up against the fence. Now, the family for Adam Toledo has a different reckoning than what the police have laid out. Here's what the attorney said.
Those videos speak for themselves. Adam, during his last second of life, did not have a gun in his hand.
Clear eyes on this situation. It's horrible. It's horrible that a kid is gone, 13 years old. But why? And this is in an investigative phase. The policeman did command him, drop it, drop it. We hear that, right? So did he throw the gun away? Was it still in his hand as he was turning? These are the questions that investigators are going to have to answer to make sense of whether or not the officer acted reasonably under the circumstances. Now, the freeze frame of the boy's hand is going to be big in the investigation, as will the question of whether the officer should have reasonably seen that action by Adam as either complying with the command to shoot, with the command to turn, okay? Here are the two things. I want to be clear about this. Did the officer reasonably believe that Adam was turning to shoot and not turning to obey the command after having dropped the weapon the way the lawyer for the family argues. Also, the nature of the discovery of the gun and any evidence of that boy's prints on that weapon that was found will be very important. Now, we have in-depth coverage coming from a lot of different angles, but please, again, be clear. There are a lot of questions here that we have to answer, that the investigation must answer before we can really know what this was about. Now, on its face, it looks bad, and it's even worse because of the timing. It comes on the heels of these two other big cases that at this point present much more grave legal developments. And as you know, both are in Minnesota. The first case involving the death of Daunte Wright saw the ex-officer today, accused of his killing, making her first appearance in court. She has been charged with second-degree manslaughter. No plea yet in the case. Prosecutors say Kim Potter's culpable negligence, which is another way in other jurisdictions you'll hear criminally negligent homicide. Her culpable negligence caused Wright's death on Sunday when she fired her Glock while shouting taser. Tonight, night 5 of protesters gathering in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. They are there in demonstrations that are an outcry of pain and cries for change. In that moment, the mother of Daunte Wright addressed the press right before Potter's court appearance today.
But unfortunately, there's never going to be justice for us. I do want accountability, 100% accountability. Like my sister said, the highest accountability. But even then, when that happens, if that even happens, we're still going to bury our son. So when people say justice, I just shake my head.
The prosecution in that case is at the beginning. And the case that started our current focus, that roiled the country since the summer, the murder case of George Floyd, that is now in its final phases. The prosecution and defense both rested. Closing arguments begin Monday. They will be critical. Derek Chauvin invoked the Fifth Amendment today. It's his right against self-incrimination. So he's not going to take the stand in his own defense. We saw his face and heard his voice live for the first time during the trial.
Have you made a decision today whether you intend to testify or whether you intend to invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege?
I will invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege today.
Is this your decision not to testify?
It is, Your Honor.
All right. Do you have any questions about your right to remain silent or to testify on your own behalf?
Not at this time, I don't.
It was an interesting delivery of that decision, but it was not a surprise that he wasn't going to take the stand. It's too fact sensitive. There's too much for him to answer for. And really, his defense seems to be pointing at the forensics as their best chance to create doubt, along with trying to create an image of who George Floyd was. Now, while that wasn't a surprise, the don't testify decision, there was a surprise today. And it was when the judge threatened to declare a mistrial. We're going to take you through that all tonight, but I do want to start with what we understand about this shooting in Chicago of the 13-year-old named Adam Toledo. We have an important guest tonight, John Catanzara. He is the president of the Chicago Police Union. Appreciate you being with us on Prime Time.
Thanks, Chris.
Help us understand why you see this shooting as a regrettable but justifiable use of force by the officer.
Well, time-lapse photo shows that that officer had 0.8 of a second to determine if that weapon was still in his hand or not, period. There's no way a rational person can say they can process that and their muscle reaction would be less than 1 second. The officer does not have to wait to be shot at or shot in order to respond and defend himself. There's no obligation whatsoever.
So just help us understand. What you're saying is whether the 13-year-old had the gun or not doesn't matter?
At the point he got shot, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. The reality is the officer responded to a shots fired call. There is no doubt that that weapon was used. Shell casings were recovered at the location of the shot. The officers were pretty close by when that shot spotter alert went off. They responded to the scene. Of course, the offenders took, flight and left. There was no one else out on the street corner at that time. It was pretty obvious when the officers got there that they probably had something to do with those shots going off. They took off on foot. The officers gave chase. You could clearly see an object, which is the gun, in the offender's hand, in his right hand, as he enters that open fence area. Now, if you go back to the video from the school that shows the long shot, he absolutely has something in his hand. You could see him extending his right arm behind the fence and then coming up with an empty hand. So whatever he had in his hand was gone. Later, it was recovered immediately. The officers saw the gun right away, as soon as they started rendering aid 10 seconds after the shot was fired. But again, from behind a fence to this in less than a second. In reality, an average human being could not block someone from slapping them in the face in less time than that, let alone deciding and registering. That it's a good reason why the officer only shot one. He would have been justified to shoot multiple times. We're trained to basically shoot two and reassess. That didn't even happen, because by the time he had shot the first time in justification, he realized the gun was.
And I do understand from my own reporting that, yes, the officer did immediately start to render aid. There was discussion about, how their equipment was. And then afterwards, he went and recovered the weapon. Now, here's the part I just want you to explain, if you would. If the kid was responding to the command, stop, show me your hands, drop it, camera that the kid threw it behind the fence, if you believe that it was obvious that the kid threw the gun behind the fence, long shot from the school, why are you so quick to say it was obvious that the officer had to shoot?
Because there's no way the officer could see where his arm went when it went behind that fence panel. It was totally blocked by the fence itself. There's no reason, and I'll tell you, we're coming up on the 20-year anniversary of a friend of mine, Officer Brian Strauss, who was shot in the middle of the night by a teenage gangbanger, June 30th of 2001. Brian didn't make it out of the alley that night. Again, we do not have to wait to be shot to respond. The officer had every reason to believe that that offender was turning and pointing the gun at him. Whatever it had, you can Monday morning quarterback it all you want, but you need to have a reasonable belief in order to take deadly action. And no person in their right mind would not say that they would have been in fear of their life in that same situation in less than 1 second to react on whether that gun was still there or not.
And it was the same officer that rendered aid to the victim right after the shooting. That's an important fact as well. Do you have any questions?
Well, if you watch that whole video, it wasn't just him. I mean, everybody that responded to that scene was cheering the kid on to keep fighting and stay alive. This isn't like, officers, they like to be vilified like we're out there hunting gangbangers. And that's not discussed either. This subject was a Latin King gang member. He did have a fresh tattoo on his arm that wasn't even healed. It was so fresh. Let's put the spotlight where it's at. The gangs take advantage of these poor, misguided young kids, and they use them for their own gain. They let them hold the guns all the time because they know they're not going to get charged juvenilely with a crime. But the reality is, the one part that's not discussed now or almost ever is the repercussions of that officer's justified decision to take a life and the guilt that they have to live with for the rest of their life. The mayor came out on a press conference today and was talking about how traumatic it was to watch this video and urging people to really take a second thought about doing it. Well, what do you think the officers who responded to that scene and were rendering aid and trying to save his life are now stuck with for the rest of their life? Nobody ever and then they got to bring that home to their families, and then their families are affected by this. Again, it's just a bad situation all the way around. The poor young kid, misguided, made a horrible decision that cost him his life. But it was justified, and the officer did everything he possibly could to the letter of the law and the guidelines of the Chicago Police Department.
I understand where you're coming from on it, and I understand the sympathies. And I understand why you want people to appreciate how hard